Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Perfect RIA podcast. I am your co-host, Matthew Jarvis, and with me today, special guest, financial advisor extraordinaire. Now, if you're thinking, I've never heard of Yohance Harrison, that's because you need to get out more. Yohance is like the rock star financial advisor. I'm so excited to have him on the show today, and we are specifically going to talk about estate planning, which is something that we all know is important, but we don't all necessarily get done. So, Yohance, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jarvis. Happy to be here. And yes, if you have not heard my name yet, that means you did not go outside in 2023. That's what it means.
Right. That's right.
What it means. You didn't go outside.
It means you're not a loyal listener to the Michael Kitces podcast. I think you were episode 237, 234, 234. Both dyslexic. 234. We'll get there. All the episodes are good. So just anything that starts with a 2, you'll be good. Well, let's before we hit record, I always ask every guest, what are you most passionate about? And you said estate planning. So let's jump. In fact, you shared that there's some clients, and we have those clients, all of us, that we talk about estate planning for a lot of years, and for whatever reason, it doesn't get done. And you and I have been in the industry a similar amount of time. You're seeing some real momentum. So tell us about that.
So I'd like to start with a story, because I love stories, and they help get the message out there. The year was 2020. We all remember it vividly. Yeah. Something big went on. I just come back from the Super Bowl, not the actual Super Bowl. I didn't go to Super Bowl, but some friends and I, we gather in Vegas for the Super Bowl. When I got back, I had to rush to the hospital here in Dallas because I had a client that had been diagnosed with leukemia. She wasn't given long to live. As a matter of fact, we didn't think she would make it through the month of March. Wow. And she was one of those clients. She was one of my first clients. And we'd been talking about estate planning since 2002. And she kept putting it off and putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. And now here she is, knowing that her end is near and still very lucid, very, very cognizant of what's going on. And I had to help her hire an attorney to come help her do the estate plan while she is there on her deathbed.
Wow.
And this attorney charged an astronomical amount of money
to do a house call or a hospital bed call. And
it was worth every penny. It was.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we did it. We actually saved a significant amount of money for her son. It was, it was one of those things where it worked out. But we needed a witness. And all of the nurses on duty said that they had a policy against being the witness. So I happened to call another client that worked at the same hospital. He was a perfusionist. Okay. And I said, hey, are you off the clock? He's like, yeah. I said, can you come witness this will for me?
I need a quick favor. Yeah.
And he did. He'd already left the hospital. He's like, I didn't know you were in the hospital. He's like, are you okay? I'm like, long story, just come to this floor. Yeah. I just need you to be over 18 and know how to use a pen. And I said to myself, as the ink was drying on that paper, never again. It was the most uncomfortable thing that I've ever had to go through. And for a client, that is. And I said, I never want another client to be in this situation, because fortunately she was still of sound mind and could make these decisions. But a lot of times people don't have that luxury. And so I went on a search and I started looking, okay, there's got to be an easier way to do estate plans. Yeah. And I came across 2 companies at the time. It was a Trust and Will and Encore Estate Planning.
Okay.
And I started using them both simultaneously. Yeah. Ultimately, I wound up going with Encore as my primary provider. But since we've been working with Encore, which we started working with them, so we, kind of COVID was happening, so things kind of went on a slowdown. But by the time I really got started with them in late 2020, early 2021, we've helped over 100 clients put an estate plan together, signed, sealed, delivered. Okay.
Wow, that's incredible.
I've never had this many completed estate plans ever. And a lot of it has been clients that I've been working with for 15, 20 years. And I'm like, look, we're finally going to get this done.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I want to pull that out just a little bit, because this isn't like it's your first day as an advisor, or you woke up in 2020 like, hey, I need to start doing a statement. This has always been a priority. Like, you've always been a comprehensive planner. You've always told clients. So was it a combination of the tool and the experience that you think really started moving people?
It was a combination of the tool and the experience. Yes. Yeah. So of course I share this story with clients as often as I can. Yeah. And I basically said, I'm not going to do that for you, because you haven't been diagnosed with leukemia. You're not in the hospital, so we're not going to do that. You're going to have to go a different route. I even had a few clients where I said, look, if you're not going to do this, I'm not even going to be your advisor, because I knew the mess that it could create, because I know the squabbles between their children. I'm like, I'm not getting in the middle of that. I'm not. Okay, so either you're going to take, okay, fine, we'll do it. But then when they found it was so easy compared to the process that they were trying to go through with attorneys, they even found it easier. So I have clients that participate in, what's it called, ARAG and Legal Shield. These,
some of these,
the ones that get on there. They subscribe to it through their payroll, and they have it for 10 years and still don't get the will and estate plan done. So, and I've had them like, no, you're not going to do that anymore. Here, you're going to do this, and we're going to get it done. And it has, now, of course, advisor to advisor, it has been a revenue generator. Absolutely has. It has been a revenue generator. It's been a referral generator. I can tell you about that in a little bit, but it is also just been able to give me as the advisor, as that fiduciary role, the peace of mind of saying, okay, I am doing what I said I was going to do when you first hired me. I'm bringing you the tools, I'm bringing you the services so that you can get your financial affairs in order. But also for the clients, I've countless emails and phone calls to just say, I am so glad that we got this done. Finally, we can finally check this off. And that feels really good, because that's really what we're here to do, is to help people do things that they normally wouldn't do on their own. And estate planning it's not fun. Let's be honest.
No one looks forward to it, right? It's not a happy topic
at all. So to be able to get it done, and get it done in a simplistic, easy to use service has just dramatically changed how we're able to deliver services and be able to say, hey, guess what? We've been saying do this for 5 years. It's done. Go out and celebrate a little bit.
I want to draw a quick note for our, we'll call them younger advisors, or any advisors that don't have that same experience, right? So sometimes I think we get stuck, especially early in our career, and Yohance, I'd love your thoughts on this as well, of like, hey, I haven't experienced that. I haven't visited a client on the deathbed. And again, Yohance, please tell me your thoughts here, but there's no shame as an advisor to say, I know an advisor who experienced, and you can tell this exact same story. Like that's not plagiarism. Now, it's plagiarism if you say it was your story. That's a problem. But if you say, listen, an advisor I respect ran into this, and he swore he would never let this happen again, and I made the same oath, and that's why we're going to do this. So like, don't feel that you can't have this kind of powerful story if you haven't experienced it yourself. Obviously, be honest with it, but that story, like as I listen to that story, I'm like, man, I need to check my estate documents. Like I need to double check, like those stories. And I love that you led with that. They draw us to action. So again, for advisors who don't yet have those stories, it's okay to borrow stories done with integrity.
So you can pause here, rewind, back to the beginning,
listen to it again,
pick up the story. And if you feel more comfortable saying, I have a friend, you can say friend. You don't have to make it another advisor, because I don't want them to say, well, who's that advisor?
That advisor?
I have a friend.
Yep.
You started that way. I have a friend who's working with a client for a long time. They'll pick up on the advisor part. Yeah. And this was, now imagine, this was also pre-COVID. I mean, I'm sure we all, if you've been an advisor prior to COVID, inside of your practice, if not directly a client's family member passed away during the COVID pandemic. It happened. Statistically, it happened, unless you just have one client. Okay. If you have more than one, statistically, it happened. Yeah. Just ask the question, hey, were those affairs in order? And that's sometimes where I start the conversation with clients. I don't always lead with, okay, I have this client and this is what happened. When I get to them in my data gathering part of my financial planning process, I just ask 4 simple questions. Do you have a will? Do you have a trust? Do you have power of attorney for medical decisions? Do you have a power of attorney for financial decisions? Okay. If any of those answers are no, the follow-up question is, have you ever been in a situation, or do you know of anyone's in a situation that didn't have those documents and they needed them? Okay.
It's a great question to ask.
Over 50% of people in the United States pass away without an estate plan. So odds are they probably know someone, or they're just going to hit you with the, I don't know. I didn't really pay attention when it happened to my grandparents, what have you. Okay, great. So now I can tell a story. Let me tell you about a story about someone who almost didn't have their documents. Okay. And while you're alive, you're breathing, you're kicking today, can we make it a goal to make sure we get this done? That's how I lead into it. And then usually the client's like, yeah, really? You do that? I'm like, well, I partner with other companies to help me do it. I'm not an attorney, so no, I don't write the documents, but I am able to give you information, and I'm able to help you get the intake form done. And that's actually the hardest part, is getting the intake form done.
Yeah. So that's such a great approach, right? You're not pretending to practice law, which you absolutely, none of us are licensed to do that, and that's great. And you're telling them where that line begins and ends, and it's perfect. I think, Yohance, as you pointed out, nobody actually wants to be in that situation, right? Nobody wants to leave a mess, but we also just don't have a lot of like prompting to get it taken care of. And it's such a mystery, right? As you said, even people that have a subscription to a service don't get around to it, let alone people that don't, that'll say, maybe I'll find a billboard in town of an attorney and I'll call them. And I hate attorneys because that's just what I've always been told, right? There's this whole thing. It's not a fun thing. So for you as an advisor to say, not only do I have a solution, but I'll hold your hand throughout it. We're going to work together and get this thing done. And where it gets scary, where it gets confusing, where it gets overwhelming, great news. That's why you have me and my team. So you ask the client those 4 questions, which is a great questions. Again, pause the podcast, rewind, listen to those again. And they say, yeah, Yohance, I'd love your help with this. How are you then transitioning to the service that you're using? You mentioned that you're charging for that as a standalone fee. I think if I understood that correctly. So walk us through that a little bit, if you don't mind.
Once they say no, that they don't have the documents, I then give them some information on why it may be important for them to have them. Perfect. And as I mentioned, I use Encore estate planning in my practice, and they have a lot of informational documents that you can just read off the page if you're using Zoom, of what the purpose of those documents are. And of course, for any of us that have any bit of financial planning training, we've studied that. We know what a will is. We know what a trust is. We know what the power of attorney documents do. So with clients, it's often helpful if I can tie some numbers to it. So what I will do is I'll look up the probate limit in their state, and it's just a quick Google search, probate limit, put the state in, and it'll tell you the amount of assets that the client has to be below in order to go through a simplified probate process. And then I describe what probate is. And I like to describe it in very cartoonish terms, if you will. And I say, you remember, in the old days? Of course you don't, because you weren't alive. But think back hundreds of years when someone would pass away and they would be on the town square and say, hear ye, if you think Jarvis owed you some money, well, he's at the morgue right now, so you better show up at the courthouse and lay your claim.
Yeah.
Think about that happening, the same laws, the same rules, but it's just not, there's no one standing in the square saying it, but it does become a public process.
Sure.
And if you want your children or not necessarily spouse, but your children or heirs, whomever, to avoid that public process, you may want to consider getting an estate plan. And by the way, your house is worth $500,000. The limit is $125,000
for that state, right? Some states are much lower or a little bit higher, but
or whatever the state is. So I share that with them, and if they're still a little hesitant, it's like, okay, well, let me make sure I calculate the cost of probate as I'm looking at your financial plan. Okay, because you want to make sure we at least pay for it. I mean, because it's kind of hard to take it out of the house. So like I said, put some numbers to it. From there, we send them a 2-page document that explains everything that I share, what an estate plan is, what a trust is, what a will is, what the powers of attorneys are. And then we invite them to schedule their intake. And of course, we quote to them what the fee would be. So of course, Encore offers the estate planning to us for a fee. And then we get to pass that on to our clients. And of course, get paid for the work that you do.
Of course.
So if you're spending the time, I take our hourly fee, calculate the amount of hours it's going to take us to get their estate plan done, and I offer that fee to them. And I'm still usually much lower than the cost of an attorney.
Oh, for sure.
Go ahead. I was going to say, there are knockout questions when you're doing the simplified.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. States have to be under 10 million if they're single, 20 million if married. They can't be disinheriting any children. So there's some knockout questions you have to go through. I will not ask those knockout questions until they're committed to the process. Because if they're committed to the process and say, okay, well, you got knocked out and here's why, we need to talk to an attorney.
Yeah,
so that fee that I quoted you, it's going to be that, and we're going to apply it towards whatever attorney we're going to work with. So if an attorney says it's going to be, $3,000, well, you're already committed to one. Yep. Okay, but because of these answers, you need that more than I ever imagined. Okay. And that's lately it's been a 1% chance of that happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, part of that's my fault because I don't have a lot of clients over 10 million, but I'll
yet. I always let clients know with that when we're using a service like Encore or Wealth.com or Trust and Wills, where I let them know, I'm saying, hey, this is not as good as a custom built document, but it's a fraction of the price. And some people, we can compare it. I loved your kind of story example. Like, hey, some people will benefit from a custom suit or a custom built house. A lot of us can just go down to Nordstrom's or wherever and grab one off the rack and have them cut it just a little bit. And so those little stories, So some people are like, hey, if you're trying out for the NBA, like you should go get a custom suit. Like you need to look top notch. If you're just going to your buddy's wedding, probably the suit off the rack is going to be just fine, or whatever the case may be. But I do let clients know that as we're prefacing those knockout questions. Some people do need custom documents. We're going to get the attorneys right away. a lot of us are just fine with a kind of a more of a boilerplate, and it's 100 times better than nothing, right? So we want to paint that range, right? Nothing is terrible. Yes. Custom built is great. Your complexity falls somewhere in the middle, so too should your documents.
With that, from that conversation, the clients schedule their intake and away we go. We do the intake, usually takes us about 30 minutes.
Okay.
We submit it to Encore. Encore creates a first draft of the document. We load that for the client to see. They review the document, make sure everyone's name is spelled right. Because it's really about the intake. Like, make sure the intake is right. Because all the legal stuff, that's not for you or for me. That is for the attorneys. And we have to trust this company that we're working with is using the legal forms for your state. I trust that they are. So I hope that you do as well. So some clients do read the whole thing and send me a list of questions. I'm like, great. You're going to, there'll be $250 an hour to get those questions answered. And, and I'm like, or here's a resource for you. And this may help you with some of your questions. So I send them to Investopedia. Investopedia has lots of information on estate planning where the clients can research that on their own. And usually that narrows them down to, and maybe there's one or two. And I've gone back to Encore and they've said, hey, that is something we can answer, or no, that they need to speak to an attorney directly about that. And that's okay too, because that still is light years ahead of where we were with nothing.
Oh, with nothing.
Okay? And again, the chances of that happening, I will say it happens maybe 5 out of 100 times. Yeah. So it's rare. From there, we get the estate plan printed, send it to the client, they sign it. I ask them to send it back. We scan it, we upload it. Here's where the referral generation starts to come in.
Yeah.
Because the clients will name in their document their power of attorney, their medical power of attorney, their beneficiaries, etc. Executor. I'm capturing. My assistant goes into Encore and pulls all those names out of the estate plan and puts them in the wealth box with the relationship. So then I get to go back to the client in the session where we delivered the plan. Let's talk about some of these people that you've that you have nominated for your estate plan. Okay. So first, let's start with your power of attorney. Have you notified this individual that they're your power of attorney? Oh, no, I haven't.
No, I haven't. Yeah.
You might want to do that. Can I assist you in that? You can do the introduction and I can share with them more about what it means to be a power of attorney. Do you know if they've chosen you as their power of attorney?
No idea.
No idea.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it turns into this referral opportunity. And we have had multiple situations where one estate plan has turned into many. My favorite story, as I love stories.
Yeah.
I'm with a young lady. If you do know me and you're at one of my conferences recently, you might have heard this story. But I'm with a young lady, a client, approaching millionaire status, young 30s, just doing great for herself. But her estate is larger than the probate limit.
Of course.
And she has a sizable estate and growing.
Yeah.
No spouse, no children. So there's no de factos there. So who do you want everything to go to? My mom. I was like, okay, great. So we're putting mom in the document. Okay, who do you want to be your financial power of attorney? I guess my mom. So we put mom in the document again. And I was like, are you putting mom for everything? She's like, yeah, pretty much mom's going to be everything. I said, okay. I said, well, you're an only child. Do you know who your mom has named in her document? And she says, Mom. And then I hear a voice echo in the background. Yes, baby. I was like, wait, where are you?
Where are you?
Like, I'm at my grandma's house. I was like, oh. So mom comes into the frame.
Yeah.
She introduces. And so, hey, he wanted to ask you something about your power of attorney or something. And she said, Yohance, I heard y'all talking and I was thinking I need to talk to you too because I need to get an estate plan done. And she proceeds to sit down and turn the computer to herself. And I said, I'm not ready to do this right now. She was like, oh, I'm sorry. Well, can we schedule something? I said, sure. Can you do tomorrow? I'm like, ooh, you are eager.
I love it.
And she was fortunate. I had time available the next day. I was like, actually, we can. And so I had to ask, I said, so are you going to make your daughter, everything for you? And she was like, well, I also take care of my mom. I said, oh, well, are you her power of attorney? Mom.
No way.
It's happening
3 generations.
So then she turns the computer around. No. Grandma's been sitting in the rocking chair the whole time. And she says, no, we need to do my documents too. So I said, all right, we'll do 2. We'll do both of them tomorrow. So one estate plan turned into 3.
Yeah, I want to pull on this thread for just 1 second, right? Because yes, and I know this is where your heart is, but I really want to draw this out for all of our listeners, right? Yes, that turned into 3 estate plans, that turned into 3 potential clients, but that's 3 families, right? Or 3 generations of a family that likely had nothing in place.
All of them owned properties. All of them were above the probate limit. None of them married.
Yep.
Okay. And grandma was, I don't know, 82?
Yeah, good for her.
Grandma was up there.
This is where that little question, right? And this is what really separates advisors who are good advisors and those who are delivering just incredible value, right? That little question of, hey, does she know that you've named her and has she named you, right? That's a small question. And you were able to deliver value to like 3 generations of a family, which also then rewarded your firm. And so it's easy to look over and like, oh, yeah, Yohance, that's kind of a cute thing. No. This is like a major thing. This one little question is a major multi-generational issue. And these are, as advisors, that's what we have to listen for. That's why I love doing these episodes. I love listening to the Kitces podcast. Like, what's that little thing that you're saying versus like, okay, mom. All right, no big deal. Great. We'll send you the documents. Have a great day. That would be easy to do. It was next level to say, hey, wait, do they know? And let's talk to them.
Exactly.
I love it. I really appreciate you sharing that because, again, those are so valuable for us as advisors to share with each other because it makes such a difference.
And it keeps happening. And then now, and of course, once it happened that way, I said, oh, wait, there's some I need to go back to. So I've had my assistant go back to some of the earlier estate plans because I wasn't doing that early on. Early on, I was just really excited to get, I got your estate plan done.
Yeah.
But now I'm going back and I'm saying, okay, well, I know we just did their estate plan last year. Let's do an estate plan review. Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
The client was like, sure, we just did it. But my intention is, okay, have we notified your power of attorney? Do they know this is their role? Guess what? They need the document.
Yeah, they do.
How are they going to get the hands of the document? You're in the hospital, incapacitated, whatever. Right? We can give them the document to get still. If it's springing, you still need 2 doctors to sign it. So, but being able to have that conversation and get that introduction has been leading to more and more referrals. Just going back. And guess what? If you haven't started estate planning yet as an advisor, you actually have this data on any retirement account that you have because the retirement account asks for beneficiaries.
Yeah, it's right there.
So you can ask, hey, I notice you have Jarvis as your beneficiary. You probably don't want to tell him he's your beneficiary, but is he also your power of attorney? My what? Well, power of attorney, like an estate planning document. Oh, you don't have a estate plan. Okay, well, let's make sure we address this at our upcoming session. So it gives you the opportunity to come into the conversation in the normal course of business.
The other way I've had great luck with those introductions is you always have to be careful when you're approaching death and dying and disability, right? But I would always mention, I'd say, hey, Yohance, I would rather not meet your kids for the first time when you're in the hospital, right? Like that's not what I want to meet, or at your funeral. That's not what I want to meet the first time. We don't have to become friends. We don't have to go out to dinner, but I would like to have a quick discussion with them so that if something ever happened to you, they would feel comfortable calling me. Is that okay with you? Of course it is. Like, why wouldn't it be okay with you?
Yeah. So this client that passed away in 2020, I had not seen her son since he was 12.
Wow. Sure. Because
just because 20, almost 18 years went by. So that was also an interesting moment to, meet him in the hospital as an adult.
Yeah.
But fortunately, he had, because he'd been seeing me since he was 12 years old, there was a little bit of rapport there. And, he was asking questions. So are you going to take care of everything? I'm like, yes, I'm going to help you take care of everything. He's like, okay, I don't know what to do. Nothing. Be here with your mom, spend time with her, and don't worry about the financial stuff, but just know that I'm going to be here to help you get through it all.
Yeah, boy,
I have been. And now he's a client, and now I met his children.
That's
so,
awesome.
I had to go meet him, went to the house and met his children, and we talked about their 529 plans that were fully funded thanks to grandma.
Good for them. Yeah.
And I know they were 7 and 10, so they didn't quite know what that meant. But now it's been a couple of years, and like, no, they know that they have college funds.
That's really great.
And they talk about their alma mater and all that stuff. So that was also the other great thing about it.
It is really fun.
Wow, we're going to fully fund your education plans because we did some estate planning and helped save a significant amount of time, money, and cost and probate. Because they were going to have a probatable estate. It was going to be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And it was going to be costly. So and that's why the attorney charged as much as she did, because she's like, look, I can charge you now, I'll charge you later.
Yeah, I get paid either way. I get paid either way.
So we're gonna get paid on one side of this. One side of this coin, we're getting paid.
I love it. Well, Yohance, for advisors listening, right, and this story is really resonating to them, what is an action step that you would recommend? Like, what's something, after you've re-listened to the episode, to the intro story, to those questions, Yohance, that you asked, what's something I could get up out of my chair and go start right away in my practice?
So the first thing I would do is take an inventory. Just take an inventory of your practice. How many of your clients actually have estate plans? Okay. If the answer is I don't know to most of them, then great. You got some questions to ask. It's not hard to put together a simple survey to send to your clients or just to ask them directly in an email that you can send out to everyone. We did it. We used WealthBox to send out a estate planning survey to find out which of our clients had an estate plan.
I love it.
And we found out there were some clients that actually did it. We were like, oh, you guys did do it. Great. Well, we haven't seen it. Send us a copy. But then it showed us the clients that we needed to target. Okay. So that's one. Take inventory. Who has estate plans? Who doesn't? Number two, research the vendors. We mentioned three of the big ones: Trust and Will, Wealth.com, Encore Estate Planning. Yeah. There's another new one that just came out a couple of months ago. Yeah. They kind of look like Wealth.com. Seems like a pretty good platform, but I haven't spent much time on it.
Sure.
But there are different resources out there. As a matter of fact, if you tell Encore I sent you, I think you get your first plan for free.
There we go.
Look at that.
Yeah, there we go.
And if you need to use it yourself, use it.
Please. Boy, that's an action item.
If you use the first one on you,
yeah,
do it. So when you take inventory, start with self.
Yep.
And then work your way through your practice. So if that's what you want to do, if that's what you want to use a free one on, fine.
Yeah. Physician heal thyself. Yeah, that should really be your first place to start.
Have it. The third thing to get out your chair and do is call your top 5 clients and just say, hey, I was listening to some friends on their podcast, and they brought up estate planning and how they're helping their clients with it in their practice.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mr. and Mrs. Client? Do you think it'd be a good idea for me to focus on this? Now, if they're your best client, they're going to do one of two things. They're going to say either, yeah, I need that. Or they're going to say, yeah, that you probably should do that. And they're going to tell you all the reasons why.
Yep.
So those are the things I would do and rely heavily. I use my top 5 clients for everything I want to do new. I call them, hey, I was thinking about you there. I was listening to this. I was talking with a friend. I want to bounce it off you. What do you think? And they'll give me their honest opinion. And sometimes it's like, yeah, I need that. I want to do that.
Love it. That's brilliant. Yeah, awesome. You can't ever go wrong there reaching out to clients. Only other action I would throw out there is if you're not familiar with estate planning yourself, my good friend, obviously, Micah Shalansky and attorney Rod Zeeb did an estate planning masterclass. So you can go to theperfectria.com and check that out. If you're trying to understand if some of the terms we threw out there, like attorney in fact and probate, if that kind of seems foreign, that's a good place and go to educate yourself there. So Yohance, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing the story and spreading the word and all you're doing in the industry. And for all of our listeners, until next time, happy planning.